Alright, so thank you everyone for coming into our online help session today. This is Mike Brightman with Brightman Designs and the author of the SketchUp Workflow for Architecture. And so today what we're doing is an online help session. We're going to take a quick lap through, typically we do a 15-minute presentation, and today we're going to talk about watermark styles. And then after that, we'll just move into some, you guys ask some questions, and I'll see if I can do my best to answer those and kind of create some on-the-fly tutorials. And we'll record all of this and distribute. So if you've registered for the webinar, then it'll be really easy for you to get that email, and we'll just send that out probably within the next 2 days. And also, if you check out our blog, that's typically where we post this stuff. So I'll head over to our blog right now. Let's see, our blog, and that's turning. Alright, so that's just running, our website's just running a little bit slow, but if you go to our blog, that's where you can catch the latest. So let me hop over into SketchUp and kind of demonstrate what's going on here. This is just a typical style. Now, the way that SketchUp renders, it just takes, it's kind of just very literal. It just throws the texture on there. It looks good. It's got the line work showing up, but you can do different things to this style to make it look a little bit different. So let me get over into my styles panel and kind of consolidate some of these other panels here, these other dialogues. All right, so here's our styles panel, our styles dialog, and the styles that we have in our model right now, we have the I click on the house icon, and that shows me everything in there. So this style is design, and we've talked before about all of our utility scenes and how design, that basically turns off all the bells and whistles. And then I have another one, line drawing, that switches over to this black and white CAD style output. And then we have one, I think I have one in the template that's called presentation. But what I've been experimenting with lately is this marker presentation. And so if you look at this on my screen, you can see how when I turn on the marker presentation style, this one has clean edges, the other one has, we've got another one with sketchy edges as well. So we've got clean edges. We'll build one with sketchy edges. So check it out though, you get this kind of overlay on top of your model, and so it really starts to break up the siding. So like without this style, if I go to edit and go to watermarks and then turn off the watermarks, you can see how this stuff, it looks really nice and random. All my materials kind of have that nice random look to it. And when I turn that off, it goes back to that really more heavily computer generated look. So with a watermark on top of these more schematic design type of presentations, coupled with some sketchy edges, you can get a much softer look. And so keep in mind that a style is nothing more than another lens for looking at your model. It doesn't modify any geometry, doesn't change any of your textures, just shows it in a different way. So let me back out of here. So the first thing we need to do is hop over into our web browser, and I'm going to do a Google image search for marker strokes, and then we'll go to our image results. So here's a bunch of images for marker strokes, and I'll go to my search tools, and the size is going to be large. I always just kind of look for large images for anything I'm using this using an image for. All right, so this one is pretty good. Let's visit the page and take a look. And so this is hosted by Flickr, so they give me the option. You can see that this Eric Conrad, he said feel free to use them for whatever you like. So that's very nice. We'll play by the rules here and just use an image that we have been granted rights to. So let's download this as a large file, and I'll save that to my desktop temp folder. Alright, and then we're going to open that in Photoshop. So I'll just go to File and choose Open, and we'll open up those marker strokes that we just downloaded. Alright, so that's the first step. So what we need to do is build a watermark overlay that we can use in SketchUp and start blending it and masking it. So what we need to do is kind of copy a couple of these. So maybe the first thing I would do is go to our select and go to a color range and select everything that's white and dial up my fuzziness, say OK. Let's just add to that selection. We're really only going to work with the top ones. Let me turn this into a regular layer. I'm moving a little bit fast too because this will just be a quick presentation, but you guys feel free to ask questions when I'm finished. Okay, so I've selected our color range, added everything to the white. Then let's mask it. Now, when I masked that, I actually masked the wrong selection. So I'll hit Control I, and that inverts my selection. So then I can invert that mask so that the strokes are showing up. We'll just kind of magic wand all of the background and hit delete. And now I think we're ready to start grabbing some of these. So let me just grab one of these marker strokes, hit Control X to copy it, and then let's start a new document. And the width is going to be 2048 by 1024. Okay. So if I remember right, I think that 2048 is the maximum width that you can have in SketchUp. So anything bigger than 2048 is really not going to matter. Now, that may have changed over the years, but I'm pretty sure that holds true. It might have gone up in a multiple of 1024, but for now we'll just stick with 1024 by 2048. Say OK. And then I'm going to paste that stroke back in there. So let me undo that. I need to go back in here. We need to apply our layer mask. So I'm just going to right click on my layer mask, apply it, and now I can cut this out of here and paste it and position it wherever I want on my page. So this first marker stroke, I'm going to right click on its layer and choose Convert to Smart Object. That way, if I need to edit anything about this marker stroke, I can change all of the copies at the same time. So what I can do is go to my Move tool, hold down Alt, and then I can just click and drag these around and just make a bunch of copies. I can hit Control T, right click, flip horizontal, and then I can kind of copy them the other way too. So I'm just trying to make like a random blend of some marker strokes, and then we'll go back in here and grab the next marker stroke. So I'll copy this one, paste that in here, right click, Convert to Smart Object. So now you can see this marker stroke is in there, and hold down Alt and I can make those copies again. And I'll just fill in a few of these backgrounds, and then I'll hit Control T, flip horizontal, and then just add a few more in there. Alright, so that's getting there, and then we'll just do one more to make sure we're kind of making this real nice and random. And we'll cut that, paste it, Convert to Smart Object. Alright, so now we can scoot this around a little bit. Hold down Alt again to make copies. Alright, so that's looking pretty decent there. Let's make sure we fill in all this white. And Control T, flip horizontal, and something like that. So I've never been a self-proclaimed pro at Photoshop, but this is the way I do it. I'm sure there's some other ways to get some brush strokes in here, but this is a good way to just work off of an image that somebody's already created online. So that looks pretty good. That's getting close to what we want. So what I'll do is just select all of my layers, and we're just going to flatten everything. We'll just flatten this entire, let's see, we choose Merge Layers down here. So now we have just that one layer, and then I'm going to double the size, the width of this thing, and we're going to flip, kind of copy everything. We'll make that a smart object, go to our image size, and the width of this is going to be 4096. Or I'm sorry, canvas size is what we want in pixels, and the width is going to be 4096. So we'll say OK. Alright, so now with this smart object, I can kind of scoot that over here. I can make a copy of it. Control T, flip horizontal, and then just kind of let these overlap a bit so that we're not getting such a obvious repeating pattern happening. All right, so now my image size on this is going to be 2048, and now let's try saving this. I'll go to save to my desktop temp. We're going to call this markers, and then I'm going to save as a PNG, and we're just going to start here. So PNG, and we're going to call this markers PNG, and save that. Now the reason we use a PNG is because a PNG file holds the transparency, the alpha. So if I zoom in on this, and I apologize, I need to save that again because I had my background layer turned on. So let's get rid of that. You can see those little checkered boxes behind everything. What that's going to do is that those actually have a transparency. This the pixels we're working with, the transparencies drop down so you can see through it and see that checkerboard background. So let's save as again a PNG, and we're going to call this markers. All right, so that's where we'll start. I don't think we're done manipulating this one just yet, but let's head into Photoshop, and we're going to turn off our watermarks, or I'm sorry, we're going to go to our design tab, and that's where we're going to start, is with our design style. So I'll click on create new style, and we're going to call this one presentation, and we'll say markers with sketchy edges, and I'll just get rid of that text. And then whenever you make a change to the style, you're going to see these little arrows chasing each other. You got to click on that thumbnail. That's what updates it, or you could consider that saving that particular style that we just created. All right, so now we can go in and edit this. First off, under the modeling settings, I don't want to see guides on a presentation style, and I don't want to see my axes on a presentation style. Notice that whenever I change anything in here in my style, it basically tells me I need to save it, so I need to always be aware of that and click on those to save the changes I make to my style. Now on my background setting, I want to turn on my sky, and we're going to choose something that's a little more sky blue. We'll say OK. So that's looking better, and again, just click on the thumbnail. That saves it. Alright, so now we want to go to our watermark settings, and we want to choose display watermarks, and then we're going to add a watermark. So now I'm going to need to navigate to my desktop temp folder, and you can see we've got markers.png, and we'll just say open. Alright, so now that one, it's going to be an overlay. That is correct, and we could title this one markers. Next, we want to create a mask, and then this is where you can choose to either show more of the model or more of the image. So let's go back to okay, overlay. We're going to blend a little bit less, so there's our model. Next, and instead of stretching, we want to tile it across the screen, and our scale should probably be a little bit bigger. So you want to get this scaled. Really, it's a personal preference, but I just want to scale it up to the point where the marker strokes don't obviously repeat. So we're going to say finish. Alright, so now that's a start, but we didn't quite get, these marker strokes, they're looking just a little bit too heavy. So let's go back into Photoshop, and I think what we need to do is go to image. We're going to flatten this and merge all of these layers, basically flatten the image, and we're going to go to image, adjustments, brightness. We're going to dial up our brightness, and maybe dial the contrast down a bit. And maybe we'll drop our opacity to like 50. Let's keep it 100 for now. Let's try something else here. Let's go to our eraser tool and choose a brush, like let's see, I think just natural brushes. And then we could choose this is where you can really get into experimenting with a lot of different things. Maybe you just want to kind of give this a little bit more variation. If I click and drag, kind of a little too heavy. Let's see what else we got here. This one might be kind of cool to just, that's a little too heavy. All right, so hang tight one moment here. Looks like my internet went out for just a moment. Okay, cool. So it looks like we went out for just a moment, but now we're reconnected. Okay, so I just go in here and I just kind of goof around with some of these brushes, but really what we want to do is make sure that we've dialed this up, and then I'm going to do one more select color range, and we're just going to grab like a gray and dial off some of the fuzziness. So I want to have like a lot of this kind of showing through. So we're going to mask some of this. Just delete that out. Okay, let's try that. So I'll save this as a PNG. Under our markers, we'll say yes, okay, and then we'll go back into SketchUp and readdress that. We'll open up a new link to our markers PNG, and we can blend maybe more of the model to get those marker strokes kind of down a little bit. We'll say okay. All right, so that's kind of the way you do that. So you can always go to a Google image search to grab some kind of an image that you like, whether it's brush strokes, marker strokes, whatever that may be. You can add those as a watermark and really just kind of break up those tiling materials using those watermarks. Just one more feature or operation here before we wrap things up. I'm going to update this as always. We want to make sure that you've saved your style. So then I'm going to go to the Mix tab, and I'm going to choose Sketchy Edges from the library down here. And so now I can start dragging sketchy edge styles up to my edge settings, and I can continue to modify this presentation markers with sketchy edges. So I might go with like broken line marker and see what that does to my edge settings. Dry erase marker, that's a little bit too heavy. Pen black, you can drag it on there. So I think that one looks pretty cool. Looks like I used a fine tipped marker or pen, and then I've got like those marker brush strokes going over it. So that looks good. I'm going to click on update. So that's presentation markers with sketchy edges. Now if I go to select and look at the styles that are in my model, I've got my presentation markers with sketchy edges. If I want this style to be available whenever I'm using SketchUp, I need to right click on it and choose Save As. Now I can save that to my desktop. I always throw this into my let's see, M Drive, Dropbox, Resources, and that's under Styles. So if I save this style in here, now whenever I click on my drop down, I can always go to Styles, and I can find I've got marker presentation clean edges, and I should see down here presentation markers with sketchy edges. So it's a good idea if you do come up with a style that you really like, make sure that you save that into your collection so that you can access it at any time when you're using SketchUp. Alright, so that is how you create a style with a marker stroke watermark. Alright, so let's take a look at the chat panels here and see what's going on. I think typically when we're doing these question and answer sessions, it is kind of distracting to have everyone off of mute. So if you guys have a question, go ahead and type those into the chat panel, and that way we can just kind of work that off the chat panel. If there's something that needs a little more clarification, I'll just pull everybody off mute and we can chat about it.